There he is. Nice ceiling, Jim.
Are you waiting for me to comment or something?
No, not at all. Yes.
I don't usually do it on my phone, so I'm still messing with buttons. So
good luck with that.
Yes.
We're on YouTube right now, so hopefully recording as well.
Okay.
It says we're recording.
Okay, so we should be ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, let's get started then. Welcome everybody to the City of Wildwood Public Safety Deer Management Subcommittee meeting, November 5, 2020. So, Michelle, if you call the roll.
Sure. Marshall Scott Collier.
Here.
And board member Jeff Baker.
Here.
And I guess officially it would be Sergeant Winling.
Yes, I'm here.
And is that officially who is on the board, Rick? What do you say? Or on the subcommittee? Is Captain Mandel on the subcommittee as well?
I'm not actually. I don't
Okay,
think.
that's okay. All right.
I think you got it.
I'm just here to criticize.
Perfect.
I'm going to refrain.
All right, that's everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I just got that. Tim Donzie says he's trying to get in and struggling with the link. I'll try and send it to him from my phone. So we're here since we're going. Approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? I'm assuming silence means yes. Anyone have any suggestions, corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I'll accept. I think what the minutes will be accepted by acclamation unless there is an objection. Any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted. And now we have the time for public comment. Michelle or Rick, is anyone in the queue?
I don't see anybody. I don't think you do either, Michelle.
Nope.
Okay, bear with me here. I'm trying to. He just replied and said he's having trouble, so I'm sending him Rick's email. I wish I could multitask better, but I can't.
Okay.
So nobody's in the queue. So next up on the agenda is a discussion of the deer sampling population study. Brad, were you going to speak to that, or was it Jim or Rick?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about it if you'd like. So obviously we've been requested to complete a survey of the population in 30 square mile area of the city. And I don't have any of the maps yet, but basically we have 3 10 square mile areas that we're going to survey. And they kind of, there's a correlation to the area that we chose with the number of deer strike crashes that we've had. We have a good solid 5 years of data on that. Well, actually more than that, but we used a 5-year period to kind of see where the higher densities were regarding crashes. So all those high crash density areas are going to be included in the survey area. And we have to get authorization from the Missouri Department of Conservation to be able to do the survey, because you have to use spotlights to conduct the survey. So we actually got that permit yesterday, I guess it was. And so we're good to go with that. So essentially we can start the surveys as soon as we get everything organized as far as the transect routes that we have to drive. So basically the way that the survey is conducted, you have to, generally it's recommended to not start the surveys until at least an hour after sunset. We generally kind of, the later, the better. So in the past, in the survey that we completed in 2018, we started around 9:30 in the evening and then ran till about, I think 2 or 2:30 in the morning. So it takes us, you're limited really to traveling about 5 miles an hour. Should be your maximum speed while you're driving the transect routes. So for every square mile, you have to travel 2 linear, let's see, for every square mile, you have to drive twice the amount in linear miles. So,
Okay.
so we've broken the areas up into 5 square mile areas. So each night that we conduct a survey, we'll have 2 teams of 2 comprised of 2 officers, and each will be assigned specific transect routes that they'll travel to complete the survey in those areas. So each group of officers will have to drive basically 10 miles to complete their areas that are assigned to them for the survey. So then we'll have 6 areas like that. So it'll take us a while for us to get that done. So there are constraints as far as weather. There can't be any rain. A light mist is acceptable, and winds have to be less than 5 miles per hour, prevailing winds. So if you have heavy rain or winds, then you have to reschedule a different night. So those are really the only weather constraints that you have to be compliant with to have an accurate survey. So we'll get started probably. It'd be possible for us to maybe start by the end of next week, but most likely it'll probably be week after next when we actually start completing the surveys. So we'll do it. We use fully marked police vehicles, and we're in full uniform and everything. So that way, if a resident sees us, they'll see that it's a police car, and hopefully that'll alleviate some of their concerns. But then sometimes people think that we're looking for a criminal or something like that. So I believe in 2018, Rick and Michelle, if you guys can remember, I think we did some type of advertising to residents to inform them that we were conducting the surveys, and that, if they see a police car shining spotlights around, they're mostly likely going to be conducting surveys. So we should probably, I guess, think about pushing something out on social media once we kind of get to the point where we know when we're going to start. So I can coordinate that with you guys once I know when we're going to actually start the counts.
So then if you could back up really quick. So you're going to do 6 different areas, and they're each a square mile?
So it's a total of 30 square miles. So each of the smallest geographic areas that we haven't broken down into are 5 square mile areas. So each 10 square mile area that we identified, so we basically selected 3 10 square mile areas that are in line with the deer crash.
Okay.
rates.
Got it. 3 10 square mile areas.
Yeah. So, I mean, that way
With most deer crashes.
we're not covering the entire city, because it would just be more costly. And
Sure.
so for now, that's what we had decided to do.
Okay.
So
If you were with a public notice, what do you, that actually happened before I started here. So what do you think is the most important thing for them?
Well, just that they're aware that we're conducting the surveys and that
Mhm.
police officers in marked police vehicles will be, shining spotlights. And it will be in both, it'll be in residential areas. So it could appear to a resident that, oh my gosh, the police are searching for someone that, ran from them or something. So people might be concerned. But I mean, we'll also advise our Bureau of Communications. So if somebody does call the police, they'll know that we're out there, and they'll be able to explain to the residents when they call that what we're doing. So
Okay.
they'll know about it on that end.
And then do you have dates yet or tentative?
Not yet. So hopefully week after next, hopefully is when we'll start. So, but as soon as I kind of am able to get all that nailed down as far as my staffing and all that, I'll keep you guys in the loop so you know
Okay.
as possible. So you'll know when I know. But it'll be in probably a couple of weeks we'll get going.
Great. Great. Thanks, Brad.
Sure.
Rick, do you have anything you want to add regarding the survey? You're on mute.
I think that's a wonderful idea to get the word out. We'll certainly help you do that on social media or otherwise. It'd be good just to educate people what we're doing as much as ease their concerns if by chance they see you.
Right.
Yeah, if there are certain areas that you think you'll be in a lot, I mean, I don't know if you think like any kind of extra communication is needed, but I can help you with that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share once I get the maps of the routes. Our planning and analysis unit is it's what is it, Captain? The Bureau of Research and Analysis now. Is that what they are still? They're preparing the maps. So as soon as they get the maps to me, I'll share those with you guys so everybody has that information. And we could even put stuff out on our the police department's social media as well. And I think probably the social media would probably suffice. I think that's what we did last time, but I don't remember for sure.
All right.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on, I think this will probably, this will be the meat of the conversation tonight, but just a review of the comments that we got from the Admin Public Works Committee meeting. Rick, you were kind enough to send us a review, a summary of our Zoom meeting with them. You want to speak to that a little bit?
I would be glad to, and I would mention, if you hadn't noticed, looks like Mr. Donzi is on the call. So
yes,
he did make it. So yeah, as far as the meeting, I did make an attempt. I did go back and watch the meeting again. That's one nice thing about re-recording them the way we're doing it now. I was able to go back and watch it in its entirety, the discussion we had at Admin Public Works. It's been some time. And it was just my attempt to capture the comments that we received at the meeting. And there were some really good comments that were provided. And so if those that were present, if you feel this is not super accurate, speak up, obviously. This is just my attempt at doing it. But I was able to sort it in basically 5 categories. If you want to go through it, we can.
Yeah, I think we should.
We can take it that way.
You all have a copy, or do you need me to share my screen?
Yeah, we can share a screen if that's necessary.
Just share a screen or send one to me because I can't pull it up. I'm trying to do.
Let's see. I should be able to share my screen, I think. if that works. Let's see here. Can you see it?
Mhm.
Everybody see it? So, assuming you can see my screen, I'm going to go down from the very top. So the first one was basically a bullet point or a point about needing more data or wanting more data. And so the bullet points that I made were would like data on the success of hunting programs. That was something Councilmember Raymond was bringing up. And he mentioned, I don't know if he mentioned it or we talked a little bit about Town and Country and Ellisville maybe. Like maybe it was me thinking that we should maybe have more detail provided with those specific municipalities and their experience relative to manage hunting. The second comment was, I think, relative to Mr. Remy as well, and it was, I think, I could be wrong about that. It was relative to having a goal, a population goal, which is what we say we're going to do in the plan. Now, maybe with the fact we're moving ahead with the additional survey work, maybe we'll have enough data such that we can actually put that in the plan, an actual population goal, perhaps. That's just my thought. And then what cost would it take to get to that goal, which I think is certainly a fair question that we need to get maybe a little more detail, in my opinion. In the last one, I wrote down, and I thought Mr. Giartano stated it, and I think it was along the same lines, essentially. I was going to double check objective B, but I think that was relative to the same idea of we really do need to have a goal in mind for the population and where we think we want to be as far as deer population. So would you like me to move on, or you want to talk about the first one?
No, that pretty much summarized it.
I was able to pull it up. It finally opened up. It just opened up slow. So if you don't
I see Tim Donzie has a question. Rick, is there any way we just bring him in so he could speak to us? I know it's probably not normal, but.
So.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think he can talk now.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, my question there was, wouldn't the Conservation Department be the experts at identifying the target population goal?
I think once we get a count in certain areas, then yeah, they would be able to do that. But I think only for those specific areas that have been sampled. Is that right?
They do have a recommended population level. I'm trying to open my report, but I can't get it open. It's cited in the,
And Tim, to your point, what is currently in the draft called Objective B literally does state to work with the Department of Conservation to set that goal. In order to do that, we have to know what we're dealing with, to get that count. But to your point,
sure,
that is the objective here. Work with them so that we have a goal that comports to their expertise.
Yes, we all know, even without the next survey, which I support completely, we all know there's too many deer. So what the habitat can support, in MDC's opinion, could be or should be available from them at this time, because we already know that there's too many deer. How we manage that and get to the goal is, of course, one of the main objectives. But knowing the goal, I would think they'd almost be able to tell us right now, or should be able to. But that's just my thought.
Yeah, I would think. But okay, good point.
Because also, I think attaining that goal is going to take a significant amount of time, and maybe you don't ever reach it. Maybe that's how you know you need to keep continuing to work on it. Right.
And one of the, I hate to use the term goal in this sentence, but one of the goals of the plan is to give us a plan going forward So and then we have this as a measuring stick against on an annual or semi-annual basis when we resurvey to see what is the effect of whatever it is that council
Absolutely.
decides we're going to do.
Yes.
And
What
so
progress are you making?
We
Yeah.
may only agree to like 2 or 3 options, right? And then we
Mhm.
survey and say, well, that's not quite working. We may need to change what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yep. You got to measure yourself, know if you're making any progress or not. And if you're not, you add more efforts,
Right.
more strategies. Sure. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, would you like me to move on?
Sure.
So the next section was speaking relative to the combining of lots. And this was one I think we're definitely getting a lot of questions about. Councilmember Eden's, most of these were probably Councilmember Eden's comments, but not all necessarily. But she was certainly very interested in it and getting more information. So first one was, is there liability or could homeowners get dropped from their insurance policies if we combine lots? I guess I'll just read through them real quick if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, need to show possible restrictions on combining 3-acre lots. I think what restrictions would be involved if we allowed that to happen. Need to clarify the 3-acre lot combination requirements. Essentially the same concern. Who would approve that process? Would the city do that? And she brought up, Councilmember Edens brought up, how would the hours of the hunt work? And I guess she was really getting into the weeds of who would determine what hours they might be allowed to hunt if you combined lots. That's not something I don't know we've really talked too much in that level of detail, but at any rate. No. The next one, can we provide an example ordinance for this? Yes, we can. And that might have been my own note, because I know we can certainly provide those from nearby municipalities. Concerned about archery hunting on combined lots in urban areas. That might have been Mr. Rambo said that one. And then not sure it's going to be done in Ward 8, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Curatano was expressing concerns about Ward 8 and the higher density area there as well. So just looking for more detail in how we would propose to go about that, I think, in general.
Well, my recollection is the city has certain ordinances currently regarding hunting. I know there has been discussion in the past of what's allowed, so-called east of 109 versus west of 109. I think that's a common demarcation point. I don't recall if the city currently has an ordinance that, restricts hunting. I think, Brad, help me out here. I think we've talked about this before, where there was a current ordinance that would limit the ability of homeowners, I thought is what it said, so-called east of 109 from combining lots, even if a plan like this were to allow it. That there are certain ordinances in place that would limit it in certain areas. And so the city council would have to decide, are they going to open those up or leave those restrictions in place, which then, sets the curb line, for, parts of this plan.
So the distinction is citywide, it's a required, in order to hunt, you have to have a 3-acre minimum to hunt. So the difference between west of 109 and east of 109 is the use of firearms. So okay. You can use firearms west of 109 generally, and then east of 109, you can still hunt with shotgun, muzzle loader, or air rifle. If it's less than, I believe, it's around like the 20 caliber range for the air rifle. So there's like compressed air rifles that are.
That's right. That was the limitation. I knew there was some east-west 109 limit. Yeah,
so you have to still have at least a 3-acre size lot, and there's nothing that allows for any combination of properties to meet that 3-acre minimum. It has to be a single lot.
Right. One other thing I remember, Rick, from our conversation, there was some discussion of, homeowners associations and whether their restrictions may or may not allow. And of course, if there are certain restrictions that would, come into play, it may be necessary for us to, make that clear in our draft plan.
Correct. I was going to suggest we could do a little digging and come up with some of the ordinances. We probably have them already relative to the other municipalities that allow this, because they do, I'm pretty sure if I recall, have some pretty significant restrictions in place that address a lot of these concerns already. Maybe not all of them, but I think a lot of them.
Yeah, so the majority of our neighboring municipalities have ordinances that allow for combining lots for archery hunting. So, I mean, that's kind of been the trend, I think, in the West County area to combine the lots. Town and Country is kind of unique because they really don't permit hunting at all in their city except for in designated wetland areas. And then beyond that, that's why they relied on the sharpshooting program predominantly, because they really don't allow hunting across the city. So that's kind of unique to Town and Country. The rest of the municipalities, the majority, I would say, have ordinances that allow for a combination of lots to meet the required minimums. So that kind of seems to be the prevailing trend amongst our neighbors.
Real quick question on the combining lots. Is there like a minimum of lots that they can combine? I mean, if you have like quarter acre or half acre? Because I remember this last time. I actually took notes from last time. It was just how confusing and how this could just get really combining lots. That's, me personally, I'm kind of with Councilmember Rob. It just doesn't make sense as I look at it deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can recall, just going through and reading the ordinances, I don't recall seeing any of the ordinances limiting the number of parcels that can be combined to meet the 3 acre minimum. So I think it's more, you obviously have to have consent from each of the landowners to participate. But beyond that, there's really no limitations on the number of lots that are combined to meet that 3 acre minimum.
Gentlemen, can I comment? I think I have a useful comment.
Yes, sir.
This is Rob Rambo. You there?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I think Lauren Eden's concern and maybe the concern of other council members with the lot combination is the reality that a 3 acre lot, if it's a square, is 360 feet by 360 feet, and an arrow from a compound bow will go 900 to 1,000 feet, and a bolt from a crossbow will go a little bit further. And so the concern is you're exposing your maybe a bunch of neighbors to an errant shot from an arrow, and beyond that, you're also setting yourself up to have Bambi die in a little kid's front yard. And so there's a real sensitivity to those two issues. Now, people can't complain about the deer population and then not allow them to be managed. But that's kind of another reason why I get into the sharpshooter approach, because I'm talking to gun guys, I'm sure. I have a national match, and I can shoot all day long and walk down 100 yards and cover it with a dime, and I'm not even that good. And there are a lot of sharpshooters in Wildwood that would be ever so happy to, receive further training, get the sight lines in order, probably manage the bait stations, and come in and do it just like White Buffalo does it. At a fraction of the cost. And I think we might have more traction with that sort of thing, with some sort of volunteer corps with a really rigorous, strict, shooting training regimen and so forth, because the concern about the archery in the smaller areas is just too great. And my personal feeling about it is you can hunt a whole long time with a lot of archers and bag a handful of deer. The managed hunts at Greensfelder and Rockwoods have shown me that, because I've looked at the numbers, and you guys probably have too. So I wanted to throw that out, that I don't think there'll be a lot of support. So you need to go in a different direction, maybe with your planning. I don't think the combining lots is gonna fly with the council. That's just my personal opinion.
Sure. I wanted to bring up, if you elevate an archer, they're shooting down. And so that reduces, how far their arrow can go. Most times that my husband has shot a deer, it's been from a bow, it's been from an elevated position. It's been really pretty close range. So there is that. As far as combining lots go, that's a whole ball of wax. But I think if we were to have archery hunting anywhere in the city, especially, maybe in common grounds, if we could permit people to do it from an elevated position that is specifically chosen with directions that are specifically chosen, perhaps that would, help that case along a little bit.
Yeah, if I can weigh in again, you're exactly right on the point of elevation, but you need to determine the field of fire. And if they violate it, they no longer get to hunt in Wildwood, because, you can be up on the side of a ridge and a deer walks up behind you and he's up the hill. It would be tough to pass on that deer for a lot of hunters, and they're shooting uphill and suddenly it's arching over the ridge and, falling back down in somebody's backyard. And that's the concern. It's really a hunter discipline problem. And from what I've seen out here, lots of archers have no discipline, and the ones that do have to pay for their mistakes and their negligence. So I'll shut up now.
So
Thanks,
I just like to comment about there's a very big point that you have to be aware of as far as comparing the effectiveness of the sharpshooting program versus just allowing hunters to hunt under the requirements and laws established by the state. The sharpshooting program allows for baiting. Basically, you set up feed stands, and you're able to cull a very high number of deer at one time, because you're drawing all these deer to a feeding location, and you're really effective in being able to maximize the number of deer that you cull in that fashion, as compared to just normal hunting. Normal hunting means you go, sit and wait for a deer to come your way.
Yep.
And it's a lot of it has to do with luck. But I think it's important to explore all the different possibilities, and maybe to allow for that type of hunting. But I understand everybody's concerns about safety, but I think there's ways that legislation can be drafted to ensure that the city is monitoring those things, and would require approval of hunting sites prior to people, being issued permission to hunt on combined parcels, for example. I think it's important to probably consider to have that out there as an option. I mean, you just can't cover every possible situation to where something may be effective in alleviating the problems that residents are experiencing with the deer in a specific area. So if for example, there's an area where you could combine some properties to allow for hunting, and everybody, all the property owners are on board with that and in agreement, and it's done in a safe way, then I think that it would probably be best to allow residents to have that as an option to pursue. But the deer sharpshooting and culling is really the only thing that's going to effectively control the deer population, where you're really going to be able to see a result of your efforts.
So can I come in again? The sharpshooting, the reason I'm hot on sharpshooting is because deer hunting seems to be ineffective for the reasons you mentioned. You just wander around, or you sit on a stand and you wait for them to come by, as opposed to baiting them in and taking out 20 or 30 or 40 at once. And in our more densely populated areas, I'm not sure we have the ability to allow for enough hunters on private land to do any good, whereas we can probably find a place for a feeding station or a bait station or two in each of the wards that would attract a fair number of deer and wipe them out. I just think the cost is exorbitant for somebody like White Buffalo, but if we could develop a homegrown program with volunteer hunters and those kinds of things, it just seems like a cost-effective way to really do the job that we're hoping to do. But White Buffalo, they have special rifles, and they have suppression, sound suppressors, and they have frangible bullets and all kinds of special ballistics work that they've done, research and so forth. But I'd be willing to entertain having them as consultants to do the training and tell us, what kind of equipment we need and kind of do it that way. Cause I'm skeptical that hunters can do the job, particularly in the densely concentrated areas. And I think that concern overall, the safety concern, Bambi dying in a kid's yard, all those kinds of things, I think they're valid concerns. And, nobody's really going to go for them, on the council. So.
Yeah, I would agree with all that, and I think as a resource, the Missouri Department of Conservation is really we really would not have to go any further than them to ask for information and guidance and putting a program together. They actually have started some limited culling just on their own. They have some agents that have been doing some culling in specific areas. So they definitely have the knowledge and, would be able to give us, I think, enough advice to where we could put something together that would be okay.
And Brad, you're referring to a managed hunt, not the combining of lots, right? With the
Well, I was speaking to if we were to ever do a culling, type situation.
Okay.
If like I said earlier, I mean, there's just so many different ways that we could accomplish these things, and it would just take a lot of discussion to pull it off. But I think we could probably do it. But the bottom line is that the Missouri Department of Conservation is who approves this. So we would really have to just seek their input and advice and direction, and to see what they would allow. And I don't know if they would allow for, I know that they would want to have some pretty significant controls in place as far as who the individuals are that are, performing the culling and all that. So it's just they just are very stringent with a lot of things, and they have a lot of concerns about the management of the wildlife. And just for instance, for our spotlight permit, typically, I mean, it specifies that no individuals involved in the surveying are allowed to have a firearm in their possession while completing the survey, unless you're a commissioned law enforcement officer. So I mean, they're very, 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 rigid about a lot of things. And so it would probably not be an easy thing to do, but I think it's something that we could consider and, just start talking about to see if the Department of Conservation would even be receptive to us trying to come up with some type of program that we would rely on a specified group of people that would be performing the culling, but I don't know if they would want to go there or not. So
the one plus of having, you know, a sharpshooter contractor specifically is that they are taking on the full-on responsibility. So there's liability there. There's just a lot of the overall emotional side of things that they're taking on the burden of that for us. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know who would manage the volunteer corps of people with weapons around the city, but you know, likely that wouldn't be a problem if it was the right people. But there's a whole ball of wax, I think, that goes with that too.
I agree.
May I chime in?
Please.
Thanks. On that point, I agree. The liability that would come on the city, even, and y'all know I am a hunter, but I would want to volunteer for something like that. But in the big scheme of things, I think there's a lot of liability on the city if something goes wrong. If you hire White Buffalo, it's going to cost something. But in my opinion, I'm hoping that sharpshooter needs are temporary. You do it fast and you do it quick, like everyone's describing. But in the long term, we need to have regulations in place that incentivize more hunting, make it more successful. If you're going to pay somebody to put a bait station, I'd put a bait station right off of the deck of my house. I look like most houses out here in Ward 1. Of course, I am west of 109, so I'm in the perfect spot. I can shoot downhill from my deck or from any tree that I put a tree stand in or a ground blind. I am going to be shooting down. Yes, it's a risk. If I shoot to my west, there's a house. You know, I don't do that. That's why actually my deck is the safest place. I have no angle towards a home from my deck, and it is the highest elevation. Or if I just put a tree stand behind my deck. But my point is, if you're going to pay people to do that, why not have a regulation to allow the hunters to bait? It will increase my odds. I love deer hunting. I spend as much time as I can, but I still have not enough time. So I'm not successful enough. I would like to have more meat in my freezer. I have friends I can give meat to. There's the programs. You know, I just want hunting to be part of a long-term solution. I know hunters aren't going to fix the current problem. So I'll stop on that topic. Another one I just back to, I also understand the concerns with combining lots. I understand that was an idea I had. I thought that would be a good idea, but I've listened. I realized that probably won't fly. There's too many risks, even from an elevated point. If I'm too close to another house and I ricochet an arrow off of a branch at just the right angle, that could be a bad situation. So maybe trying to work for the low-hanging fruit, you could change the concept. Rather than combining lots, why not make it a 1 acre lot minimum rather than a 3 acre lot minimum? And maybe pick the actual zones within the city with a little logic and a little identification. You can see where things are a little bit more open. Maybe you don't make it to the entire city. If certainly in the dense populated areas, probably not a good idea. I support all those concepts. Those are some of my thoughts that I could remember right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So, and remember the purpose of this is to provide options to council, because council is going to have to decide. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm just making notes.
Can I? I'm sorry. I had one other comment as well. I just thought of, if you don't mind. I also think we should work with the conservation department to incentivize and almost enforce hunters to earn their right to shoot a buck. Other places where they need to manage the deer herd, you're trying to reduce the does. So, okay, conservation department does a pretty good job of making archery tags $7 for does. And, you know, with gun season, you can get more and things like, but there are other situations where you're not, you know, I have a neighbor, he allows somebody to come in and hunt. I asked him the other day, is he archery hunt? No, just gun season. I said, does he come in and shoot any does? Because last year he sent me the picture of the buck he shot. And he's like, no, none of that. You know, he just wants to come in and shoot for some antlers. There's plenty of hunters like that. There's really nothing wrong with it. But if you, there are management ways with through the conservation department, in my opinion, it ought to be St. Louis County wide. There's an issue. Every municipality is dealing with this out in the rural areas like we have with the open spaces or any big parks or, my God, you go, I was in Afton the other day at a cemetery, unfortunately, and there's deer. They're everywhere. But nevertheless, my point is, you know, try and incentivize the hunting in the long term to, you know, manage the herd rather than always having to pay somebody to come and sharpshoot.
Okay. Good points. Thank you. Rob, did you add something?
Oh, well, I can jump in on that. I wanted to kind of stay in the background here to let you guys talk because it's not my meeting, but I will say that we need to, I did a back of the envelope calculation. I can't remember the exact figures, but I just did it by the 2018 deer study, the deer population in Wildwood and healthy deer population, which is, you know, somewhere between 6 and 25 deer per square mile. And we have several times that. And so to get to the appropriate, you know, high end of that healthy range, we would have to kill a couple thousand deers, and at 500 deer and at $500 a piece, that's $1 million proposition at a time when we don't have a lot of money. And so I understand. I mean, I grew up hunting. I killed my first deer when I was 12 years old in the backyard of what is now my home. My mother killed her last one at age 82, and I got pictures of it. In fact, I got a mount, 14 pointer. And so we're a deer hunting family, but I just don't see deer hunters being able to be effective enough to cull 2,000 deer anytime soon. And so we have to take more drastic measures. And I like the idea of developing a program and you know, doing it in a little bit more of an industrial strength way. And then we can, you know, fill in around the edges with hunters, you know, that, you know, want to do some deer hunting and maybe they can keep the population under control in certain areas. But it's going to take radical effort. And a bunch of bow hunters and a bunch of rifle hunters are just not going to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a one season and we're done situation here with the population we have. Even with a you know, managed hunter sharpshooting proposition involved, I think it's going to take a couple years to get down to where we think we ought to be, which is why I think you have to have multiple options on the table, particularly to, once you get to that point, maintaining it. Because that's the thing, once you let off, well, here they come again. So, okay, thank you. So, you know, we've talked a bit about managed hunt. I don't, you know, it's on the screen, you know, the discussion points from our chat with the other subcommittee. I think to Brad's commentary, I think, you know, we can work with the Department of Conservation and get some idea of what they approve regarding these hunts in certain areas. Am I correct, Brad?
Yeah, so actually this Saturday begins managed hunts in Greensfelder Park and Babler, or is it Rockwood, Captain? Do you remember?
Rockwood
the only
Range.
one in
Rockwood. Yeah, so Rockwood Reservation and Greensfelder Park, there's Department of Conservation is having managed hunts in both of those park areas, and those begin this weekend. So
they manage those hunts, and they're not hiring this company. They're
managed hunts. So it's you know, regular hunters that enter a lottery basically to be able to participate.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily the sharpshooting idea where you bait them and.
No, there's no baiting. It's just the regular legitimate hunting.
Okay, I apologize. I was conflating the two.
There's a report out there that tells about the success of these managed hunts, in our local area. And it's, the numbers are a bit disappointing if we're trying to cull, a couple thousand deers. But the rifle figures are, since it's easier to pull off, killing a deer with a rifle, those figures are a whole lot more attractive than the archery hunts. Maybe because there aren't as many archery hunters out there, but also because it's harder to kill one and actually find it, because even the best archer, it's going to run a ways and it gets lost and so forth. So I don't know if you guys I'm sure, almost certainly have seen it, but if not, the conservation department can provide that data.
Yeah. Okay.
I was hoping it would stay cold, and sometimes the temperature, has something to do with that. And we've had some really warm seasons the last couple of seasons. So I wasn't exactly hoping it would stay cold, but I thought if it stayed cold, perhaps there would be a better overall, deer season locally. One thing I did want to talk about was what did I want to talk about? Well, just the possibility of there's HOAs that have common grounds that are several acres, and some of them I think are even, maybe 5 to 10 acres. So I was wondering about the idea of having an HOA control whether or not they could have a hunter in a, specific type of area, if they wanted to decide to do that. That's a sort of an option that could be on the table.
They have 3 acres. They can do it right now.
And that even east of 109?
Sure.
Yeah. So it would just be up to the trustees
Right.
to decide whether or not they wanted to allow hunting on their common properties.
I'm guessing to say it's not happening much.
No, I'm unaware of anybody that's doing that at all. So I mean, the only hunting that's really going on by property owners, I don't think Pasiglia's drew a special permit this year, but they do from time to time because they have some pretty significant issues. And then all the farm property down near Strecker and Valley. The person who manages those properties, he's pulled, I think, 3 special hunt permits so far this year to try and deal with the issues down there. I mean, the population in that area is very, very high. So it'll be interesting to see what our deer count shows. And I'm not sure. I'm going to try and find out how many deer he's taken this year, but Aaron Shank will have all that information. But it'll just be kind of interesting to see if that has any impact on the actual count when we survey that area again here.
Oh, do you guys, has anybody thought about that second hunting season? We had talked about a while back a second season, possibly asking MDC if we could do something like that in the spring. And after Mr. Rambo was talking about doe hunting, I wonder if we could bring up to MDC to do some kind of just specifically doe season.
I suggest doing that in the winter. Just extend a rifle season, maybe west of 109 or wherever you feel it's safe, and allow doe hunting through January and February. I think less bugs and things like that is more desirable for me as a hunter. I'd rather take more deer if I need them in the wintertime.
I mean, maybe what we should do is, I know Erin's very busy right now with all the hunts that she's managing, but we probably need to sit down with her and
Sure.
see actually what's possible and what's not, and what they may consider for the city, because ultimately they're who has control over all of this. So that would give us a starting place and kind of the realistic perspective of what is going to be possible as far as all the hunting would go.
Good idea.
Maybe once we have the new numbers in too, they'll be able to provide that information. That would certainly be helpful, I suspect.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe things might slow down. I don't know when she has a slow time, because I think she's pretty busy year round with a lot of different things, but yeah, maybe we could request meeting with her, after the first of the year sometime. And that way we should have our study should be completed. Hopefully we'll have the survey. We have to have the surveys done by the end of December. So we'll have all of our data, and all that'll be fed to our Bureau of Research and Analysis, and they'll crunch all the numbers and all that, and hopefully have the report available potentially the earliest, I would say maybe February. So if we could shoot maybe sometime in March to see if Aaron could pencil us in and start that line of communication with the Department of Conservation and build from there.
Do you think that in Wildwood it would make sense to have, like, do certain areas have a doe only year where it's doe only, and then maybe the next year is does and bucks? Because I think he brings up a really good point about the bucks. And the other thing I've thought about with the bucks is that, the genetics of the deer are being like really diminished. I mean, not that this totally matters, but that because everybody shoots these bucks, the bucks are getting younger and younger. And I kind of feel like that makes the deer move around less, and they just sort of stay in one place more, because they don't have these big stags like running them around. So, I'm just wondering if that's a possibility. If we went doe only, that could decrease just a lot of possibility for reproduction.
Yeah, that's always your focus in the culling programs, is they focus on the does. So it's definitely would be a strategy to try and pursue, and they probably already encourage the harvesting of does over bucks, but I don't know for certain what policies they've enacted for these hunts. So, but I would imagine that they are probably encouraging the harvesting of does in these hunts that they're having in the parks starting this weekend.
Okay. Brad, would you mind just or Rick, if you could just reach out to her by email, just give her the idea that we should have our survey done at this point. We'd like to sit down afterwards and get a couple ideas out of the way, so we have a clearer idea of what they would allow under the Department of Conservation for managed hunts, sharpshooting, etc. So we understand the parameters with them. So when we get something to council, we already know what the state position is.
Certainly, yeah, I'll be happy to reach out to her.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I would just like to ask her for any language she might have about recommending hunting does.
Yeah. And they may have a whole bunch of information that they can just provide us even ahead of a meeting. There may be some canned stuff that they have that we could use.
Yeah, I'll take a look into all that.
Yeah. Secondly, I think even though there may not be a lot of interest at council regarding expanding some hunting opportunities, I think we still need to explore it, particularly the as you brought up, Brad, what the neighboring cities are doing, what they allow, and some of the parameters around that, because I don't think we're very clear on what those parameters are.
Yeah, I can throw that together too. Actually, I think we've gathered up most of the ordinances from the
Okay.
adjoining municipalities, so that'll be easily done. I'll be happy to do that as well.
Okay, appreciate it. Because those two things there, I think, are two, are going to answer a lot of these asks from the committee once we can get that together.
Yes.
We're going to answer a lot of these things. So, and I do want to be mindful of everyone's time tonight. So, any other questions about managed hunts right before we move on? Okay, moving on.
So in the list, the last few items were sterilization, and then there was discussion of a no feed ordinance, quite a bit of comments in support of the no feed. The sterilization was something that I think there was a lot of sense that would be expensive and probably isn't feasible, but then there was definitely a few comments that we should look into it further. So I wanted to mention that as well. I think we said it was probably too expensive and not cost effective for the most part, but there was a lot of comments on the sterilization and a lot of comments in favor of the no feed ordinance.
Yeah, that was the one thing I do recall in our meeting that they essentially had consensus around was the no feed ordinance, which I think we already have. So
yeah, I think it might have been Mr. Bertolino. I could be wrong. That was made the statement about enforcing it. How do you enforce it? And
yeah, exactly.
There's some reservations there.
Right. And as far as the sterilization goes, I mean, I did do some research. I was able to find some information on the internet, and everything I saw from, in neighboring states, et cetera, I mean, it was just prohibitively expensive from what I read, negligible results.
I agree. I've done the same searching, so I just think it's a non-starter. I believe Dr. Remy read a report that was favorable to that idea and brought it up. But I sent him some information I'd be happy to share with you guys that's, scientific, actual, peer-reviewed studies of sterilization programs, and they just don't work.
Well, and I think you might have read that study about, there was one study that occurred on an island. So deer couldn't come from
Right.
an outside area. And the other thing that we've talked about is we could easily spend a bunch of money sterilizing a deer and then it could get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Which is the thing we're trying to avoid. So.
Yeah, we and plus it's just logistically, it's a crazy thing to do.
Right.
On a large scale.
Well, it's a
For
question
certain.
people want answered, I think. So the better we can answer it, we should be prepared.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think the other thing is and if they ask about birth control, that lasts only 1 year, and the deer, the does who get the birth control, they never come out of estrus the whole time. So they're being chased around by bucks the whole time. It's totally dangerous.
Okay.
Does conservation have a position on sterilization? I mean, I wanted to say they did.
Yeah, she is against it.
That was my recollection as well.
She had said that they tried it and it was horrible. Is what those were her words.
It's very stressful for the animals, so it's really not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've still got some of the research I found. I'll continue to poke around and look for stuff regarding sterilization. So we're prepared to discuss that. And Rob, if you don't mind, if you've got something, send it to my city email address.
Absolutely, be happy to.
Thank you. So that is pretty much, the sum and substance of our meeting. It was good. I thought, from most perspectives, certainly brought a couple of things up to my attention that I hadn't given much thought for. So, you know, this is sort of the backbone. Is there anything, having had this conversation, are there other ideas or thoughts that people have that we should, you know, continue to pursue or that I could pursue? Looking for information. I think, you know.
This is Tim, if you want me to chime in. I put some things in the chat, but you know, I agree with sterilization. It might be getting better with time. We should keep an eye on things like those capabilities, but I don't think they're there yet. One of the ideas that in kind of relation to the concept of the local deer militia, we could put a reward or a bounty on does that are shot in Wildwood and try and incentivize hunters to do that, you know, something at a much lower rate than paying professionals. And again, I believe, just like some of the others have shared, you know, we have to get over a hump, and we might need the professional sharpshooters to do that. But I'm again, my comments are usually towards that long-term maintenance. So
Sure.
Just different ideas I have associated that, and I'll wrap it up.
Right. And Tim, I appreciate it. I did see your comments there. I made notes regarding extending the rifle season and et cetera. So I appreciate
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Did we cover the no feed ordinance question, or did I miss that?
Yeah, we briefly talked about it. That was the one thing that that committee kind of had consensus around. But the real issue is that was brought up is how do you enforce it?
Yeah.
I thought the city already had a no feed ordinance. I think it's a matter of reminding people.
Yeah, there is no, the only time that it's prohibited to feed is if we're in a chronic waste area. So if we are not this year, I think 2 years ago we were in a CWD zone, and the conservation department prohibits feeding if they've declared an area a CWD zone, and we're not currently. So there is no regulation of the feeding.
Okay.
Unless.
We did have a resident recently call, and she was upset because she has a neighbor who believes it is her job to take care of the deer.
Yeah.
I think it was in Lafayette Trails.
Yeah.
And it just draws a lot of deer into the area, and it really annoys a lot of the neighbors.
Sure.
So in that situation, like, could you use a nuisance ordinance for a person like that, you know, who's obviously deer feeding, and she is obviously putting her neighbors in a situation where the animals are congregating?
I would hate to put the police in the position of having to overinterpret an ordinance in that manner. If we're going to have a no feed ordinance, then that's what we should, consider proposing to council to debate, is whether, we may just need to have a no feed ordinance.
I can include that in the ordinance research with the neighboring municipalities.
Okay.
And I think we did that. So I think I have all that information. So I'll put something together so we can all see all this information, and I'll do the best I can to validate it to see, so we can see who has what.
Yeah. And that just may be a long-term plan, and that's fine.
But Chesterfield has one. In a way, it does help that we're near a chronic waste zone, because what I told the woman was I gave her the chronic waste flyer, and I said that I had a neighbor who was feeding deer, and we just live a little too close to Franklin County for me to think that's completely okay. So I basically gave them the flyer, and they took it down pretty quickly once they realized that they could be doing harm. So, that is, in a way, it could be helpful, but it could be also that if we just have an ordinance, that could be enough for most people.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns about this summary? We've got a few things going forward to work on, so that's good.
All right, stop sharing my screen.
Okay. All right. So I think that was pretty much it as far as the agenda goes. Any other issues of concern for the betterment of the group? The next meeting date will be determined as we go forward. I don't think we need to set it tonight. Correct?
I think that's fair to say. I would expect we would have a December Board of Public Safety, a regular meeting.
Mhm.
And then if we try to do the alternating months, that would push us to January.
January. Okay.
So maybe if we have enough information to provide back.
Right. It may be that we may want to have this meeting with conservation before we have our meeting. So we'll keep that in mind going forward. If we can get to conservation before February, that'd be great. We may not be able to, but we may just have to, try and plan it. But I think it might be better to at least have some ideas from them so we can come back and share it all with everybody at one time. With that, I appreciate everybody, your involvement and your caring about the deer and more importantly, our community. Thank you, Tim and Rob, for participating and providing good feedback.
Thanks very much for letting me participate. I just thought a voice from the council ahead of time might help you guys from, keep you from going down a path that's not going to work, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
No, appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, take care. I know we probably, so we'll have a public safety meeting in a month. So, but until then, happy Thanksgiving. And maybe by the end of the year, we'll know if who are the next president's going to be. Who knows?
Good luck.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate being involved.
Absolutely. Tim, stay in touch.
Thank you.
You got it.
Take care.